Hi, my name is Mary Jabalisco and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to work on color mixing. Anne and I have often been asked, how do you get all of the different colors that you create by just using 9 colors? Well, today I'm going to show you how we do that. If you'd like to view our paintings, just go back to our website at kingsland.com and you can see our different paintings. We'll also explore how form creates, value creates the form. Go ahead and get your papers out and let's get started. There's many principles of mixing color, and the very first one that we're going to explore is how to create a value scale. And you should be on page 3 at this point. In using the value scale system of mixing, blending becomes easier since the proper hue, value, and tone are established on the palette prior to placement. But first we have to explore a few terms. We have, first of all, the medium value, and this value establishes the color, the hue, and the intensity of the object relative to the space it occupies in the composition. In the Munsell system, it is considered the medium value. In the Prang system, it's value 5, as you can see on this chart. Then the next value up is the light value, and this value becomes warmer, lighter, and brighter. Now notice that numbers get higher as the value gets higher in value and in lightness. So the higher the number, the higher the value, the higher the number, the lighter the color. Sometimes there's confusion there. It seems like 1 should be a lighter color and 9 should be a darker color, but it's actually just the opposite. So 5 is our medium value, 6 is our light value, and then value 7 is also known as light. And this is also getting warmer and brighter as it goes up the scale. And then value 8 is a highlight color, and value 9 is white. Now the highlight color again is warmer, lighter, and brighter in comparison to the light and the low light. Then moving down the scale we have value 4, and this is high dark, and this is considered to be the area where the object turns from natural light into the relative absence of light. This section is darker in value than the medium, slightly cooler in temperature, and duller in tone. But when you have 3 darks, this dark is the most important and should never be lost in the blending process. Then moving down the scale at value 3, relative to the above dark, this mixture becomes cooler in temperature, duller in intensity, and darker in value. And we will talk about all of these terms. Value, of course, is the relative lightness or darkness of a color. And then we have low dark. And then relative to the dark mix, this is darker, duller, and cooler. And this is the value that's usually closest to the value of black in value. And then value 1 is black. Do remember that there are exceptions to the rule, but this is just a really good guideline. What you also notice is the phrase value creates form, and that'll be another thing that we explore, how to create form on each object based on an upper right hand light source. We're going to start by mixing a value scale of gray going from values 1 to 9. So what you will need out is your palette and just white and black. Do look at how to set up a palette on the top of page 3. Set up your palette at this point with just white and black, and then we will mix a value scale of gray. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to explore value. And the definition of value is the relative lightness or darkness of a color or a hue. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn to page 4, and on page 4 it will tell us how to mix our value scale of gray. And then we'll actually put them in the squares. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to mix the medium value, and in general the medium value is considered the mass tone or the local tone of the object that you're painting. But we're going to start off just with an average value 5 by taking white and black and adding them together. Each time you go to one of your pure colors that are across the top, be sure that you wipe your knife, otherwise they won't stay very pure. This is a pretty good value 5, one that's going to be right in the middle. Remember, value 1 will be black and value 9 will be white, so we have to mix gradually up to those different values. What I can do is I can take a portion of my value 5 and move it up on my palette, wipe my knife, and add white to it and get just a little bit lighter. Or you could just mix more black and white together just using less black. Now that's just a little bit lighter, and that's just what I'm looking for. I'm going to split that off, add some white to this next value. So I've mixed my value 6 or my low light. Now I'm mixing my light value. Each time splitting off from the previous value to create the newer value. Wiping my knife, going back to those pure colors. The light values are the easy ones. The more difficult ones are the dark values. Again, I'm going to take a portion of my medium value, move it down on my palette, take a small amount of black and add to get that slightly darker value. This is also known as value 4 or the high dark. Alright, now that's just a little bit darker. Now I can take a portion of this, and each time I take about 1/4 of the previous value. I'm going to make my dark value. And now I can make my low dark value. Low dark is the darkest value except for black. Then what I can do, this is one of my students' favorite activities that we do, is what's called marrying the values. And what that is you start either with the lightest value or the darkest value, and then you just run your knife through each one. So I had some low dark on my knife. I'm putting it in my dark value. Now, leaving a little bit of the dark value on my knife, I'm going up to the high dark. And this is really great on a value scale that has some color to it because it just mixes one color into the next and then they look like a unit. This is great if your value scale is almost right, but this will just make it perfect. This will also eliminate any jumps between values. And now we have a little bit more cohesive of a scale. And so just to review, we're going from highlight to low light, mid value, high dark, dark to low dark, or values 2 through 8. And this will become very important when you start working with value placement guides to understand the names of the value as well as the number of the value. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to now on page 4, we're going to fill in our 9 grays with the value scale that we just mixed. Let's fill in this chart. I'm going to start with black at the bottom of the scale. And having a value scale chart for your reference is a nice thing to have if you ever need to compare something to a standard. So if you don't have a value scale chart, this is a great one to have one. This is a great way to have one. So there's value 2. The dark values, as I mentioned earlier, look very close. Those light values are a little bit easier to get the differences. So if your 2 and 3 look really close, or your 1 and 2 look really close, that's okay. Each time I go to get more paint, I do wipe my brush. I like my colors to stay pure after I've mixed them. I guess after I've married them, then they have to stay You have to stay pure after that. Okay, getting nice gradual value change here. The real trick when you start laying these on the paper is to see, are there any jumps? If there aren't any jumps, then you know that you mixed a proper value scale. If there are any that look just exactly the same, except for maybe those real dark ones, then you know perhaps you didn't have the proper black and white ratio. And so then 9, of course, is white. And so when I put that in, I want to see if it looks like a proper conclusion. I think my 8 could have been a little bit lighter, so I'll just add a little bit of paint on top of it. So there is a value scale of gray. This can be your standard, and again, sometimes the values are referred to by 9, lighter up at the top, and 1, darker at the bottom, and then low dark, dark, high dark, medium, low light, light, and highlight. If you're working in the Genesis heat set oils, you're probably aware that Genesis has a value scale system of gray, and I have them laid out here. It goes value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, of course, is white. So don't be afraid to use the Genesis premixed grayscale. Try mixing one on your own first, just so that you understand how values have an effect on one another. But the Genesis grayscale is just a great addition to your paint kit. Again, value placement will create the proper form for you. On the next page, what you will see is the different art forms. And they are the cylinder, the sphere, the cube, and the cone. And you can theoretically make any shape that you want out of these different art forms. And if you know how light affects value, then you will know how to paint just about any object. Whether it's a nose, a pear, a wine bottle, they're all just different shapes. So let's first look at the sphere. And you do have a photo of these painted and finished. But this is with an upper right-hand light source. So what you do on an upper right-hand light source is you divide the sphere in half vertically and then horizontally, and your light will be in that upper 1/4 quadrant. And I like to go from the known to the unknown, and I know that in a sphere, and this is true with any object, light takes on the effect of the form. And so in a sphere, your light is going to be round. And then what happens is you have a crescent of dark, and if you think of this as a clock, you're going to have a crescent of dark that goes from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock on that left side. And notice that the widest part of the dark is exactly opposite of that light. So that's how you can plot out your sphere, the light and the dark, and then the rest is your medium value. You also have to think of advancing and receding edges, and this right side is considered a receding or moving away from us edge. Therefore, you're going to place a little bit of dark value there. That's your basic sphere shape. Let's look at the cone. The cone and the cylinder are quite similar, but again, notice that on the cone, the light value takes on the shape of the cone, and then we have a dark value that goes all the way up the left side, because that's the side that's away from the light, and then again, this right side is a receding edge, and that has to be darker because it's moving away from us. Then the balance is your medium value. And let's review medium value one more time. Medium value is considered the mass tone, the local tone. It's the only value that's being seen in the natural light. All the other values are either being struck by the light or are receding away from the light. Then going over to the cylinder, what you do on the cylinder and on the cone, you divide it in half, divide it in half again, and that's where your light value is going to strike, in the middle of that second division. And then we know that, again, we have that receding edge, medium on either side, and then dark on that outside edge, again because it's moving away from the light. This particular cylinder is an open cylinder. light travels in a straight path, and so we have light on the front of the cylinder and light on the inside of the cylinder. Light strikes here and then continues and strikes on that opposite side, and then it progresses over from medium to dark because then it's receding away from or moving away from the light. On a cube, this edge, this is called the leading edge, and that is the edge that's coming toward the light the most. Therefore, this edge is a light value, and then it goes to medium and then dark. But because this plane is relative to the light source, it doesn't have a lot of value change. Then on the top of a cube, you have light, and then it progresses back to medium value. That will help that cube look like it's lying flat. This side of the cube is away from the light, and so it's going to go from medium plus dark to a dark value, and that will make it look like it is not receiving as much light, therefore it's just a little bit darker. Review your photograph and you will see these painted in values, and memorize these charts, and then you will not have to slavishly copy objects. You'll just know how light affects an object.